All right, welcome into SEC at the Voice of College Football. Andrew Miller with Jackson Johnson and Tucker Harlan here on a Sunday afternoon. The craziest Sunday I can remember in quite some time when it comes to SEC football, with everything that is happening right now. The eyeball emoji from Steve is very appropriate because that, the eyeballs have been wide open all morning. Coaching carousel in full swing and just complete and utter mayhem right now in the SEC. With everything happening with Lane Kiffin and his departure from Ole Miss and eventual move to LSU. That's obviously where we're going to start. But we also have hires made at the other openings across the conference. Jon Sumrall going to Florida, Alex Golesh going to Auburn, and we also have Ryan Silverfield going to Arkansas, unless Arkansas fans successfully pull off a Tennessee Shianoing and try to make that hire not happen, which I'm surprised Florida fans, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen with Sumrall at this point because they're all.
Somebody should tell Arkansas that this is 2025, not 1965, where they're in the SEC, not the Southwest Conference.
I don't think it's the worst hire. I don't think it's a hire that I understand why they're not excited about it, because I would not be excited about it personally either. But it's weird that all of these fan bases are coming away disappointed in one way, shape, or form, except for, I guess, LSU, although they're kind of seeing everything with Lane right now in the mess that he is leaving in the wake of leaving Ole Miss. So we got a lot to get to. Let's dive right into it. And obviously we've got to start Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss after getting a win in the Egg Bowl, securing the first 11-win regular season in Ole Miss history, locking in a spot to go to the college football playoff, probably going to be a team hosting a playoff game, which would be the biggest football game played in Oxford ever. And, there had been the rumblings for so many weeks, and just not even just rumblings, full-on reality that he was entertaining, kind of Florida, but mostly entertaining LSU as very real, like, hey, he's going to leave and go and take this job. And I think there was all signs were pointing to he was going to go. But then it's like, man, can you actually walk away from a team that I don't think Ole Miss is going to win the title. I think Ohio State and just some of these other teams might be a little bit stronger. But I think they're a good enough team. They could win games in the playoff. And then if you win a couple games, what's going to happen? You are contending for a national championship. Are you going to walk away from that team? And even if you think, man, this LSU job is something I need to go and do, are you actually going to do it? And then very clearly, he's willing to do it. And you're supposed to have the announcement Saturday in Oxford. Marty Smith was being held hostage outside the Manning Center all day, trying to report on what was going to happen. And just, it was kind of one of those things. No news is, I think, bad news for Ole Miss. It's the thing just drug on. He has the meeting with the chancellor and the athletic director late last night that goes on for like 4+ hours, however long. And basically come to find out that it's Lane trying to force his hand, that he wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wanted to take the LSU job, but also coach the Ole Miss team through the playoffs. And Ole Miss very adamant, we are not going to allow that to happen because of all the reasons you wouldn't allow that to happen with the schedule and the calendar the way it is, and that being a conference rival with LSU. And now Lane has created this complete firestorm in Oxford on his way out. He is, telling Ole Miss that you're going to have players leave the program. You're not going to have an offensive coaching staff. He's telling his offensive coaching staff, if you're not on the plane with me today, you're not going to have a job down in Baton Rouge next year. And the Ole Miss Player Leadership Council reached out to him, texted him, and he did not respond back. They went and tried to meet. I don't know if a meeting ever even happened. They were supposed to have a players meeting this morning at 9:00 Central Time. It gets pushed back to 1:00, which I think was basically them saying, we're not letting Lane talk to the team because Lane has to be
here's what we were hearing. Ole Miss is basically having to turn their phones in, so to speak. Let me go ahead and pull up that headline because I think I've got it somewhere. It was from On3.
Speaking of On3, guys, not SEC related, but Michigan State has just fired Jonathan Smith.
Oh, yeah.
You're adding to the fun.
2 years in. 2 years. They got a conference win yesterday, did they not? Did not beat Maryland? Wow.
Maryland's they're crud. Somebody should tell them that this is not Jim Tatum from 1955.
Shout out to Mike Loxley. Going really well for him there. But he's going to keep the job for another year. So, but it's not SEC. I guess Maryland at one point it was the Southern Conference. So, back in the day, but still, that's not SEC news. So, but the coaching carousel just continues to spin on.
Well, today is technically Black Sunday.
Yeah, no, it's one of the crazier days ever in the SEC leading the charge. But Kiffin is just burning every bridge imaginable on the way out of Oxford right now. He's taking the LSU job. At that point, he is going to be the next head coach at LSU. We can get into the LSU perspective, the Ole Miss perspective, whatever, but I'll just turn it over, open floor, whoever wants to speak up here. Overall takeaways from what has happened here.
Anybody that's watched the movie Clerks, right? You see this guy, Dante, who's with his girlfriend, Veronica, and, she's doing all this nice stuff for him, but he wants to get back together with this girl named Caitlin because, they dated together in high school, but guess what? It doesn't work out for him. That's what the Lane Kiffin Ole Miss LSU situation is. Lane Kiffin basically wants to get back with the high school crush instead of stay with the one who is good to him. That's what this whole situation is.
Well, there's the whole thing with his ex-wife Layla too. So I mean that is literally going on.
There's also the things with the girl who's closer to high school, not high school age, not high school age, college age, but still, in some of the rumors there. But
it's a mess, man. And
mess.
I'm gonna say this too, just because me being a Tennessee guy, I have seen this before with Lane Kiffin. He's not changed in 16 years. You no matter what kind of weight loss, dietary changes, emotional changes that you saw at Ole Miss, he's still the same Lane Kiffin because he ran off from the Tennessee job to USC back 16 years ago, and at the time, like you're thinking, yeah, he did leave them in a terrible position. The 10 years that followed were not great. So Tennessee fans may argue that was a worse move at the moment, but if Ole Miss has a stretch like that here after this, then I'm not sure then that Tennessee fans can call it worse. But I mean, we saw him flirt with Auburn back in 2022. The team visibly lost interest after that. Well, once he started flirting with them, I should say, because they kind of went into a free fall there at the end of the season. But no, you look at this year's group, like they came out focused, prepared for the Egg Bowl. They handled business in the Egg Bowl, and you're thinking right then and there, okay, maybe not all's bad. And then you see Lane Kiffin go up to Ben Garrett in the post game.
Yeah, right.
Oh no, this could get messy. This could get really, really messy.
No one has ever been vindicated more than Ben Garrett.
Garrett. Because here's the thing you got to understand with that, like. If you just stayed at Ole Miss, you can debunk his point, but instead you just proved it by going there. And I mean, to have that documentary released earlier this season, and then just still go out and flirt with two other SEC teams, rivals, by the way, one of them at LSU that you're going to. I think that is significantly worse than what he did at Tennessee. And to walk out in a situation where you've had the best season in program history. I mean, obviously Johnny Vaught is still the greatest coach in Ole Miss football history and will continue to be. But, I mean, you look at what he was doing there. He was on that track. Like, he had multiple 10-win seasons there. He was going to have another one this year. And, now we're looking at a reality in which Ole Miss is not going to have its coach for the playoffs. I mean, there's going to be at least two teams that will not have their coaches for the playoffs just because you look at the group of 5 teams that are going to be without them. I'm sure we'll get into that later because that's a whole separate mess. But we live in a weird world right now. I haven't had a drink today, I promise. But that's what it feels like. It feels like we're just living in a very drunk college football universe.
Like it is official. Like Lane Kiffin is basically the Joker of the SEC, where he's just smiling in your face and treating your team like crap. Like it's like Ole Miss is getting that Harley Quinn treatment, just like how Tennessee did after 2009. I mean, and I think LSU is going to find out a lot what it's like being Ole Miss and Tennessee. Not now, but give it 5 years if he's still around in Baton Rouge. That's what's going to happen.
One of my big takeaways is yesterday, the politicking that was done in favor of Lane Kiffin on College Game Day. Jackson, I'm sorry, your boy was involved. Nick
Oh,
Saban
I know.
sticking up for him. Like, that's Jimmy Sexton fully at work. And it was – look, I'm a Mississippi State fan, so I can't pretend that, like, I can't laugh at a lot of this. But at the same time, like, Ole Miss could not let him coach this team in the playoffs. You can't let it happen. He is going to a rival school. He is going to be putting his focus on the rival school. He's going to be talking to your players every single day, along with your coaching staff who may be following him, talking to the players every single day. Hey, y'all going to come down to Baton Rouge? Like, you got a spot there. Come on, let's keep this thing rolling. We're going to set you up you're going to go play in Death Valley, all that kind of stuff. You can't have that guy in the program. You just can't. But you can't have the lack of focus on even the side with him leaving, because I know at a much smaller scale, North Texas with Eric Morris, let's say they win the conference championship game and they go to the playoff, or the same thing with Jon Sumrall, who's going to be taking another job now. The focus isn't going to be there as full for those teams in the playoff when you're talking about the chance of competing in the playoff. Now, realistically, North Texas, Tulane are not going to compete for a title in the way that Ole Miss has a chance to make some noise in the playoff. It's not the same thing. So if you're Ole Miss, you're looking at this like, we can't not be putting our best foot forward with this, the biggest opportunity this program has ever had. Like, we can't have all hands not be on deck towards trying to compete for a national championship. And then again, you add in all the constant noise of trying to potentially pull players and pull staff towards Baton Rouge. The whole thing was messy. The comment we get, yeah, no, it was incredibly messy. Like that's putting it lightly.
Yeah,
it's been just an all-time bad handling of things, and I don't think Ole Miss is in the wrong here. I will say, the longer and longer it went on, it almost felt like there was a certain extent to which is Lane Kiffin going to get his way, and they're going to just be forced to have to let him coach. But I mean, you got to credit to Ole Miss in that they weren't going to let it happen. They couldn't let it happen. And Kiffin is just making a complete clown of himself on the way out of Oxford. And look, LSU, I mean, yeah, good for Keith Carter, comment we got here, which, yeah, Keith Carter has handled this really well, about as well as you could have. Now, Ole Miss has also gotten put in a tough spot from the next hire. We can talk about that here in a sec. But from an LSU perspective in the hire, look, there's a lot of reasons to love bringing Lane Kiffin in as a coach and what he can accomplish. And I guess I did see a few LSU fans, when people were questioning, this, point out, like, Brian Kelly, there's, the allegations against him, but then also you have Ed Orgeron before, who was trancing around town and having fun with people that maybe shouldn't have when he was there. So it's not like LSU is not used to coaches not being fully locked in, but at the same time, you're getting to, like, if Kiffin is showing you this is who he is, and Tucker, you're right, nothing has changed since Tennessee. Nothing has changed. He may be sober. He may have gotten himself in shape, and, like, good on him for those things. But all the PR of, like, he's turned it around, he's the same old guy. And at a certain point, like this, I feel like this was inevitable with Lane. The idea that he was changed was just completely false. And I know if you're LSU, you think, well, we're not going to lose him. What if the NFL job comes open? And I know it's not quite the same, because that would be all after the postseason, so you're not having to worry about it messing up a postseason run. But the NFL calendar doesn't coincide with the college football calendar at all when it comes to hiring a coach. So if he leaves you in the same manner for an NFL job, what are you going to be doing in terms of finding your next coach? Or I don't think he would ever get this opportunity again. But what if somehow, some way, USC was like, you know what, Lane, we see how you've got things figured out from a coaching standpoint, clearly not off the field. If USC came calling once again, they wouldn't do it. I don't think they would do it. But what if he would leave LSU for USC? USC is the job for him. So if you're LSU, like, yeah, I think you feel pretty safe because of where that standing is. And I agree. Like, it's not that I don't understand why Lane was enticed by LSU. Like, I do think ultimately, like, why he made the move. We can get into that in just a sec. I do understand it, despite what Ole Miss has been able to accomplish this year. Like, that is one of the very best jobs in college football. But if he's willing to walk away from a team that's in the playoff and won 11 games at an SEC program, and was right there, like a Georgia team that we think could compete for the title, like they were right there against Georgia. If he's willing to walk away from that team, he can be willing to walk away from you as well.
Oh, agreed. Well, and I got this story from Pete Nakos at On3 pulled up. All right, if I pull it up, gentlemen.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, so he's talking about how for the team meeting, how Ole Miss is requiring the players to turn in their phones heading into the team meeting, right? And we see banger headline graphic from On3. And On3 has reported, especially from Chris Lowe, where he talks about how Lane Kiffin has lined up most of his offensive staff to join him at LSU. He's told them if they're not in the plane to Baton Rouge today, they won't have a spot on staff. They have a press conference scheduled for Monday at LSU to officially introduce Lane Kiffin as the head coach. And let's go ahead and pull up the other one from NBC. Okay, we see enough of emu. Yeah, bye-bye, birdie. So Mike Florio is talking about the offensive assistant is getting the ultimatum. Now, if that were me, I would say, no, you can make it work, Coach Kiffin. You can make it work in Baton Rouge. Sorry, I'm not working for you. But that's just me. What do you gentlemen think?
Yeah, one thing I've been wanting to mention about this whole deal with Lane Kiffin going to LSU, and maybe this changes when he goes to LSU. That man still hasn't won a championship.
No.
He's walking away from a job where he could win a championship in order to chase another job. And again, I'm not saying he can't do it at LSU. He walked away from Tennessee before he could ever prove it. He didn't do it at USC, so they let him go. Now he's got a chance to do it at Ole Miss, and he's just going to run from it? Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And again, it could change at LSU. We've never seen him win big in a place where he has massive expectations, though. That's the problem. Like, Ole Miss, they're happy with a nice 8 to 10 win season most years. This is an incredible season for them, obviously. But he's still going to leave before he can really accomplish anything. And I think that has to that has to irritate some people, potentially at LSU. That's the one knock on him that I think you can have right now, if you're an LSU fan. So I get why they wanted him, because he was one of the more attractive hires in this cycle. They needed attractive down there at LSU after having gone through some coaches that were, I mean, they were able to win 8 to 10 wins or 8 to 10 games a season, just based on the talent pool that they had down there at LSU, but they just weren't the greatest coaches. I think Lane Kiffin is a smarter coach than, say, Brian Kelly at Orgeron and even Les Miles. But none of it makes any sense. Like, they're hiring a guy that is still unproven, despite the fact that he has been coaching football for basically 20 years.
You're right. There is a level of unprovenness. I think the sell is he has averaged, because now after the 11 wins, they've officially averaged 10 wins a year in the last 5 seasons. It's 50 wins in the last 5 years at Ole Miss. And that has never happened in Oxford, even when Johnny Vaught was there. Obviously, Vaught, you're right, accomplished the most. But and also we know now they play a couple extra games than they did back then. It's not quite the same, but they've never averaged 10 wins a year over a 5-year stretch, and that's what he's accomplished. And the idea is, if you take that and put it in Baton Rouge, how is it, what's that going to turn into? Now, the part of it that's interesting, though, is like Kiffin is his own guy. It's very funny. Like last week, I saw an LSU fan, like they were ranting about Brian Kelly and like recruiting and talking about Brian Kelly being more interested in like fishing or something instead of recruiting. And Ole Miss fans were like, are y'all unfamiliar with Lane Kiffin? What Lane Kiffin will do on the bye week? Like, he goes and gets on a boat and he goes out to the ocean. Like, Lane Kiffin gets to go and do his own thing. And that was part of it at Ole Miss. Is, to your point, Tucker, Ole Miss is a job. And I understand they've gotten a whole lot better over the last few years. And it does need to be said, like, what they've done from an NIL standpoint has helped out a ton. Like, that part is still a very real part of it and why they've been able to have success. And that's not going to go away. I do have some thoughts on that as to like what it might look like in the future, but the infrastructure is there for sure to be successful. So like there is that setup, but at the same time, you're right. Ole Miss, this pressure is not the same. Like what he has done at Ole Miss, even if he never got to Atlanta, even if he never won a conference title, never won the playoff, if he continued Ole Miss in the current trajectory, Like, you're talking about statue territory there because of what he's ultimately been able to accomplish.
That would appeal to
now
his
you take that over to
right
LSU.
there.
I'm sorry?
I said that would appeal to his ego right there.
He didn't want to stay around long enough to do it, though.
Wow.
You guys are lagging on my end, which it might just be my internet. So that's why I didn't fully hear what was said. But, like, look, he's accomplishing a ton, but the pressure is different at LSU. Like, and we got a question, how much is LSU paying him? I mean, the contract's like $98 million reported for over, I think, 7 years.
And it's crazy because they still owe Brian Kelly all that money, and yet they're going to pay Lane Kiffin even more. That's $144 million in debt that they're going into right there, that they're going to have to try and find that money from. Where they're going to find that money from, I don't know.
They're basically making him the highest paid coach in the country when, to your point, he has never won a title. Now, again, you understand the idea is if he did it at Ole Miss, he can do it. If you accomplish what he did at Ole Miss, you put him in front of LSU with LSU's recruiting base and all that stuff, and it turns into more. But the pressure is going to be higher on him. Like, is Lane going to be able to be Lane in Baton Rouge? And I don't know, maybe some of the perspective is they're going to let him do that. But it's different pressure, different expectations, and, like, it's going to be a much tougher situation there. Even with LSU is a job that I'm of the opinion, if you go in there and you don't screw it up, you will contend for a national championship. I understand why he is interested in doing it, even with what he's accomplished at Ole Miss. And the argument for LSU is the high school recruiting base that is in place it's so uniquely situated because not only are you in a very talent-rich state that has big-time athletes at every single position, you have those players in your backyard, and unlike a lot of these other states that have big-time players, every single one of those kids grows up wanting to go to LSU. Like, in the state of Texas, it's not that way for any of the in-state players. Like, across the board, they all want to be Texas or Texas A&M. It's not that way in Florida with Florida State, Miami. It's really not even that way in Georgia, where, like, right now, if you look at the overall state talent in Georgia, which is a big point for that job, a lot of those are, like, it's not homegrown talent. It's players. It's not generations that have been in Georgia for years and years and years, because a lot of people have moved there. So it's not necessarily kids who grow up dreaming of being a Bulldog. LSU, it's a lot of homegrown talent who every single one of those kids grew up wanting to be a Tiger. So you have a natural advantage with big-time players with a whole state that is behind your program. So there is a draw there in terms of getting players. And look, the high school recruiting thing does still matter. Like, I know people have turned it into, like, it's all just about, like, geography doesn't matter anymore. It's all portal going forward. At the end of the day, like, the teams that are winning national championships are doing it on the backs of high school players as, like, the foundation of the roster. And even, like, people talk about the geography doesn't matter. Yeah, if, like, a kid's going to get offered crazy money, yes, he's going to go elsewhere. But when it all comes down to making the decision, like, mommy and daddy want you to play close to home. Like, that does still factor in. So having those kids in your backyard, I understand why he is interested in LSU and the perspective of could he win a title at Ole Miss? Probably yes. But why would he want to go to LSU more? I guess he feels like I can do this more regularly in terms of being at the absolute highest level, not just getting to the playoff. Now, they got to put up the money. And we get a comment here about that they're broke and that they don't have the type of money. I mean, they made big-time financial commitments. Whether or not they meet those, we'll see, because Ole Miss did put up the money for them. Like, Ole Miss has one of the better NIL operations in the entire country. So, like, you are walking away from that. And if LSU is not going to put up the money, because a couple of years ago, they didn't have it. Like, that was one of the things that sneaky, like, they were behind on NIL. Now, they went out and got the top portal class in the country this year, which suggests that they are getting the money together, figuring it out. But if they're not going to put the infrastructure behind them, then it's not going to work out. And again, like, his personality in a place like that, look, if Kiffin hits in Baton Rouge, the guy can coach. But, and look, we got a comment here, Tucker, you think you can win a title at Ole Miss, you can win one at LSU. Yeah, I understand, but it's one of those things where it could also go really poorly in Baton Rouge because of all the pressure and all the questions of, will they have the alignment in place that actually makes sense? And then, can Kiffin handle all that pressure? That's going to be a big question for him.
Yep.
Pete Golding is the interim head coach. Yeah, I was almost a little surprised. There was a lot of talk about Joe Judge getting the interim tag. I think there's a lot of push internally to make Pete Golding be the guy moving forward. Joe Judge actually be the guy moving forward, surprisingly enough. But yeah, Golding's going to stay in Oxford unless the next coach comes in and says, we don't want you, which I actually think a lot of coaches would keep him on. I mean, he's a good recruiter, knows the SEC really well, and has done a great job with the defense in Oxford. He's going to stick around, but it's a matter of, who are they going to put as the interim? And I know there was a lot of push for Joe Judge because he's pretty well liked there. So, I mean, we'll see how that goes moving forward. And we can talk about Ole Miss here in just a second, but all the things of why you understand Lane would leave. It's one of those things of like, are you willing to walk away from a team that's in the playoff? Like, I think there's a lot of coaches in the country that even with the circumstances, like you can look at LSU and like understand like, man, that is a job that's really hard to say no to. But man, I got a program right now that is going to be in the playoff and theoretically could compete for a title. And I've got a really good thing going here. Am I actually going to step away from this? And a lot of coaches would say, you know what, there'll be an opportunity elsewhere. And I get it. LSU is one of those jobs that's really hard to say no to, but are you willing to walk away from it? And I think Kiffin's one of the few guys that is willing to do that, but it's not a great look for him. That's for sure.
No,
well,
he's one of a kind.
Oh, he most certainly is. He's one of a kind. But my question is, does this affect playoff seeding for the Ole Miss Rebels, or does nothing change?
We got a comment here, Andrew.
I see that. I'm trying to confirm.
Yeah. Per Neil McCready of 247, Pete Golding has been hired as the permanent head coach.
Let's make sure.
Need to confirm that.
Y'all keep talking. I'll try to confirm this.
Yeah, let's make sure that we got it.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Neil McCready.
I mean, I'm going to their 247 board now.
Okay.
I know this is great radio. We're all checking this at the same time.
Yeah, it's because we got all kinds of headlines. Yeah, multiple sources are telling us Pete Golding has been named Ole Miss next head coach. Still seeking further confirmation, but definitely trending in that direction. That's his tweet as of 5 minutes ago. And then 16 minutes ago, he had another one. 2 people have told us that Ole Miss players were told in the meeting that Pete Golding is the new head coach. One source said, quote unquote, permanent. We don't have that confirmed, but it's clear Golding wants the job badly.
Okay. I mean, look, I'm not entirely surprised by that. Like, I'm a little surprised because, and nice wheels, like on the match board confirmed a few minutes ago. Yeah. No, McCready has been as locked in as anyone throughout all of this.
Oh, yeah.
He's done an outstanding job of covering this whole situation. He and Chase Parham over at Ole Miss 247, they've done an outstanding job covering throughout all of this. So I definitely trust Neil. I just wanted to make sure it was actually out there posted. But I think that happened, though, because Ole Miss's top 2 targets were like that they were looking to have been named as coaches at other jobs. So we'll talk about that here in a sec. But look, Ole Miss was not caught off guard by any of this. They had been planning for multiple days. They had been in contact with Jon Sumrall. They had been in contact with Alex Golesh. And just the timing messed up. And that's part of Lane. And, I had a comment here earlier. Ole Miss was never going to be legacy for him. It was like LSU's an opportunity for legacy. Maybe, but like the legacy he's leaving is he's leaving a pretty ugly legacy in general, just as how he's going to be remembered, even if he goes forward. And look, if he goes to LSU and wins a ton of games, then a lot of this is going to get like Ole Miss fans will never forget it. I guess SEC fans will never forget it either, but the narrative will then be, of a championship winning coach. But if he goes to LSU and it does not go well, like the legacy is going to be how he blew it up in Oxford. And yeah, go ahead.
Oh, well, honestly, it's not just about Ole Miss, man. Like you look back on his entire career, if this goes poorly at LSU, I don't think there will be a single destination in Lane Kiffin's career where they can say they look back on his time there fondly just because they know how it ended.
No.
Honestly.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is crazy. Like, Ole Miss, and there was an Ole Miss fan who commented to this today, and they're right. When he was hired, none of them expected him to stay there forever. Everyone recognized like he's going to take this as a stepping stone because Lane's entire career has been, I'm trying to move up the ladder. But it was the Ole Miss perspective is like, hey, if you come in and you can give us a couple awesome seasons, that'll be fine. And then it looked like after everything happened with Auburn back in 2022, it looked like, hey, he might actually ride this thing out for a while. And yeah, there's a couple jobs that could open down the line, but with as much as we're winning, with as much as we're committed to NIL, like, is he actually going to step away from this? And no, he's clearly showing he was still willing to step away from it. And again, you talk about like ruining things on the way out. We'll see if Golding works out for Ole Miss. I understand why they would want to promote. And like situationally, Golding has stepped in, has done an outstanding job, loves it in Oxford. Defense is all behind him. I think a lot of the team is behind him. And they've, as much as Lane has kind of blown things up here, he's created, like they have created something in Oxford. I don't want to just say him because I get it. The NIL is a big part of it as well. There's a foundation to have a lot of success moving forward. Why not keep somebody in place who's going to keep that going? I understand that mentality. It's just, is he actually ready to be a head coach and be the guy to lead the program? And I know from reading McCready that as early as yesterday or late last night, they were not expecting Pete Golding to be the guy. There was an expectation of going after guys like, I think they knew Sumrall to Florida had already happened, but Alex Golesh was another name that Ole Miss was very interested in. Well, now he's the head coach at Auburn, which it's funny, on the show we talked about, we had the interview, Austin Farmer came in to talk about Golesh potentially going to Arkansas, and Arkansas has gotten left out here. John, we do know Golden's been promoted. That's what we're talking about right now. Like it was a bit of a surprise. We weren't expecting that because you had these other targets of like, hey, these are guys who have actually done the job. They might be willing, they're offensive-minded guys, to keep Pete Golding on staff, keep that part of it going. But we get a guy in who's been a head coach before and has shown they can handle those things, with SEC experience. And instead, they're making Golden the full-time guy because Lane drug this out so long. Like, if you're Sumrall, you can't just keep waiting. If you're Golesh, you can't just keep waiting. Like, you've got an opportunity to go take jobs that traditionally have been upper half of the SEC, and you don't know for sure you've got a good backup plan. You're not going to pass on that. So, again, that's where Lane has created a problem here is, and it may work out. Again, Golding may be fantastic as a head coach. We'll see. But he prevented Ole Miss from getting the coaches that they were most interested in because of how long he drugged this thing out and not giving them an answer and trying to force his hand. He has completely squandered any sort of legacy. Like, he has had some of the greatest years in Ole Miss football history, not even close, and has had success there that a lot of other guys have not come close to accomplishing. And he will never be remembered fondly.
Well, there's a bright side to all this for sure. Marty Smith can finally go home.
Yes.
He is free. He is free at last.
Free at last.
Hey, Oklahoma has Eddie in the bushes. Ole Miss has Marty in the Manning Center.
Did y'all see somebody did use Grok to make the video of Marty, and it's like him saying, "I am being held hostage. Tell my family I love them." I roll my eyes at a lot of AI stuff, but that was a good use of AI. That was very, very funny.
Oh man, I was talking with our buddy Darrell, who's in the chat, that Marty waiting for a confirmation is basically like, waiting for Squidward to get out of SpongeBob's house to the point where it's like many months later, and then the old narrator quits his job, and then they have to replace him with a new narrator.
I think somebody did one photoshopped him 50 years from now, and it's wild.
Would that be number 3 sports? I think it was.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah. Okay.
The old sports anchors had to quit, and then they had to hire a new one.
There's all the chaos of this. We can hit Lane Kiffin handled this incredibly poorly. Ole Miss got put in an awful spot, but you can't blame Ole Miss at all for how they've handled this. I'll say this for their team. I thought going into the Egg Bowl, and this was not just trying to be wishful thinking from a Mississippi State fan. I think it was understandable to expect they might not be fully locked in for that game. But to give them credit, Ole Miss came into that game fully prepared, ready to go, despite all the noise from Lane Kiffin. I think that team, and I don't give any credit to Lane. He doesn't deserve it. Give credit to the Ole Miss roster and the assistants They have stayed locked in throughout all of this, which is probably part of the reason Golding is just being promoted full time. Like he showed he can keep those guys have shown they can keep the roster locked in. We're going to trust them moving forward. They came out fully ready to play in the Egg Bowl. I think they'll be fully ready to go in the playoff as well. I do think they're going to stay locked in. Now they're going to have to figure out the offensive side of the ball because again, Lane is saying that the offensive assistants, you better be on the plane or you're not going to have a job in Baton Rouge. So we'll see what happens there, how they're going to handle play calling. But I think the team will be ready to go. I guess I was about to start talking about just the hires in general and the futures for those teams. But one other point though with the playoff, because I know Brett McMurphy's been talking about this. We had Hunter Yurachek on the last playoff reveal come out and say they would consider Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin. What does that mean? They're not going to get left out of the playoff. They're going to be in the playoff. Do you think there's a concern they don't get a first round bye at this point? Are they going to get docked because of this? Not first round bye. Sorry, first round home game.
That's one thing that's hard to figure out because you look at the focus of the team in the Egg Bowl. And I think the big question at this point is how can you retain that roster? Because as of today, we are getting into the silly season where these guys will announce their intent to hit the portal. And by doing so, they're not going to participate in postseason games. I know the portal opens in January, but, guys make their decisions ahead of them. If they want to leave, they'll go ahead and leave now. The question I think now, how focused do we think this team is going to be? Of course, we don't know the answer. We're not going to know the answer for a few more weeks. How much does the committee take that into consideration? Because they got some other teams that I guess will be fighting for those spots. You assume, you assume both Indiana and Ohio State are fine in those first round buys, and then maybe either Alabama or Georgia or both. I don't know for sure what they'll do with the SEC championship participants, but they could both get the first round buys.
I think Bama, if it is a third loss, would not get a bye.
Okay.
They would get a home game. I don't know for sure, but I know they changed, obviously, the structure of it to allow for a championship game loser to still have a bye. I think because it's a third loss for Bama, they probably would dock them to just a home game. Yeah. But, yeah.
That makes sense. You have to figure Texas A&M has probably slid out of the first round bye at this point, right, with the loss to Texas. I know there's some recency bias involved there, but you've also got two other unbeaten teams and another team that hasn't lost to anybody other than Alabama at this point. Texas, unless the committee is deciding to be that gracious to Steve Sarkisian after his used car salesman sales pitch after that game on Friday, I don't see a way that they get into the college football playoff. So I guess the question now is Oregon. That's another team that's got to factor in there too.
Oklahoma, Notre Dame.
Yeah. Is Notre Dame a team that you're considering for a home game? I don't know at this point. Again, recency bias with them because the first two games of the season are their only two losses. Who am I missing? Anybody else? Oklahoma is another one to consider, but Ole Miss does have the head-to-head over Oklahoma.
It has a better record, but it's one of those things, if the committee wants to excuse it, the comparison has been made to Florida State losing Jordan Travis and how that completely knocked them out. Now, what a fair point has been made. Big update here. Neil McCready just confirmed the entire offensive staff will stay at Ole Miss and not follow Kiffin and that includes Charlie Weiss Jr. That is one that reflects pretty awful on if that is in fact confirmed.
Wow.
And Nice Wills has not led us astray yet. One that reflects awful on Kiffin.
Yeah,
those guys supposedly you're fine. We're with you. That's just another shot at Kiffin right there. Not that I think he'll have a hard time getting a staff together in Baton Rouge, but at the same time, that reflects awfully on him. That's a good sign for Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is going to. I know you were questioning there, Tucker. How does the committee view it? Are they going to be locked in? I don't think it's a question. They're going to be locked in.
But not now with the offensive staff staying. That basically confirms everything I need to know.
It's a committee thing, and if the committee wants to make an excuse, you can't drop them out. That's not going to happen. Could you bump them down, even with like Oklahoma having a worse record and having the head-to-head loss at home? By the way, is there a world where the committee knocks them out of being a home game, which would not be fair at all? But the Florida State comparison, though, the difference is that we saw what Florida State looked like without Jordan Travis, whereas with Ole Miss, the Egg Bowl, even if Lane had 1 foot out the door, he had 2 feet out the door, for being honest. Lane Kiffin was still on the sidelines. So it's technically still Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. It's a fascinating thing to see how they're going to handle that. I mean, I do think, and it was a message board post, the AD confirmed they were staying after a meeting at 1 p.m. today. Look, if it's literally just Kiffin gone, Ole Miss needs to have a home game. And which I think that they need to have a home game regardless. It's not their fault at all.
Exactly.
You can't punish that team. Even would I laugh? Yes, I would laugh, of course. But I mean, at the same time, you can't fault that team and punish them over the coach acting like a clown. I know we had a comment earlier, like Kiffin is a clown. He's going to terrorize the SEC. Like, we can say that if we want about him, but he's handled it so poorly, and you can't fault Ole Miss for his actions at the end of the day. So, they need to have a home game, but we'll see. The committee finds any ways to spin things however they want. That's just what hey, we appreciate you, Nice Wills. Glad you love the channel. And thanks for keeping us updated throughout all of this. It's been great. The committee will find any sort of way to spin things if they want to. So that's going to be a big thing to watch in the next coming days is how does Ole Miss get impacted in the rankings? That's going to be huge on Tuesday night. Now spinning this forward, setting aside all the drama and craziness and setting aside this season. We'll start with LSU.
LSU?
Yeah. It's Kiffin. It seems the offensive staff's not going to be there with him, and it's going to be a new defensive staff as well. We'll see if he chooses to stick with Blake Baker as DC or, who he turns to. If Durkin is still going to be at Auburn or not, which I think that's part of the conversation there, that maybe Golesh had agreed to keep Durkin on staff. But what if Durkin gets an opportunity to go and rejoin Kiffin down in Baton Rouge? Is that something that could happen? I don't know. What are your just general thoughts, Kiffin as the head coach of LSU, setting aside the craziness, which I know is hard to set aside?
I don't know.
It's hard to say right now.
This honestly feels like, on the one hand, it could be a very successful era for LSU and Lane Kiffin. But on the other hand, this feels like it could be similar to Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M.
Maybe.
I will say, and I know this is something Bud Elliott from Cover 3 Pod, and obviously covers Florida State over at 247, has talked about a lot, and it's not quite the same because the team fell apart at FSU his final year, and but whereas Kiffin still had the thing rolling. But again, is that really Kiffin or is that all the guys on staff? It is known, though, Jimbo basically just quit putting in forth any sort of effort with that team. No, and he just kind of quit on the team. And then it was like his coaching career was sort of done. There were the signs. Is that going to be the same thing with Kiffin? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. And one thing, too, about LSU, particularly next season, the math worked out to where they are one of the teams having to play in the same location 2 years in a row against one of those permanent opponents, which is Ole Miss. So they're going to Ole Miss next season. And keep in mind, they are also headed to Tennessee next season. So there is potential double trouble with mustard bottles and golf balls on the way for Lane Kiffin. I think he will be able to get a good quarterback, and he'll find a way to assemble an offensive staff. It's just a matter of how successful he can be, is my general takeaway from this. Because we've seen coaches that have gone down there and they've won some games, but they're not able to pull through and win the big one. all the time. Like, Coach O, Les Miles, even Brian Kelly to some extent had some very talented teams, but they just fell short. That's kind of Lane Kiffin's the story of his career at this point. So if they don't go down there and win a national championship within like the next 3 or 4 seasons, I could see that fan base turning on him. Just because he has not really won in a place where they have expectations for you to win big.
We do have an update here, and I did just check. And again, nice Wills with giving us all the updates. From McCready, per an industry source, Ole Miss has agreed to double the pay of all offensive staff, and they're staying with Ole Miss and Golden. Which is, I mean, I will say, as a Mississippi State fan who has seen a defensive coordinator that was well-liked at the time that he was a coordinator get promoted to that full-time head coaching job to try to manage a very difficult situation, not at all comparing the passing of Mike Leach to Lane Kiffin walking out the door, but just the idea of just a complete fall apart that was not fully expected in the midst of like you have some positivity and then it just goes poorly. In promoting a coach on staff to try to stabilize things, a major difference. Arnett got rid of the offensive staff that had the air raid in place and was what that roster was used to and completely blew that side of the ball up. You have Ole Miss keeping the offense in place, and Charlie Weiss Jr. has done an outstanding job with that offense. That coaching staff has done a fantastic job. It does lead you to believe Ole Miss could have a lot more success, continue the success moving forward, as opposed to a little bit of a dip if Golding could just keep things operating as usual. For the LSU of it all, I mean, look, we had a comment earlier. I'm convinced Kiffin's going to have a elite quarterback no matter where he goes. It's going to be Austin Simmons as his quarterback next year at this point. I have to think, because Trinidad, I think, is going to stay in Oxford. I mean, look, Kiffin's going to score points. He's going to find a way, and he'll have somebody on staff that will be able to score points for him. I'm sure there's a former offensive assistant he can go out. I do wonder, I mean, if Weiss Jr. is going to go, obviously, like, Lebby is now a head coach. And Weiss is staying in Oxford, which I think is, by the way, probably smart for Weiss because he's still having to live in the whole shadow of, well, is it really him or is it Lane's offense? He gets to be the guy just completely running the show, and it's good for him. Like if Ole Miss has a great offense next year, Charlie Weiss Jr. will be a head coach in 2027 at another program. So I think it's smart for him to stay in Oxford and continue to elevate himself. I'm trying to think of guys who could step in. I think John David Baker, he's the OC at East Carolina. Previously was an assistant under Kiffin at Ole Miss and is running that offense at ECU. Has done a really great job. I wonder if he goes out and gets him, or maybe he goes to a different style. I don't know, but look, he'll find a way to run a good offense. Defensively, he has shown the ability to hire good defensive coordinators. Like, I have my opinions on Durkin as a person, but Durkin is clearly a good DC. He's done an outstanding job with Pete Golding in like that defense and making that hire. He can assemble a staff. That's not a question. It's just you wonder if he's burned too many bridges now at this point, or if guys are just going to want to come and be a part of it because it's LSU, and we'll see what type of money they're putting forth. Look, Kiffin has been at the forefront of recruiting in the portal. He's going to have to show the high school side of it. That's a big thing. Robert, most of the Ole Miss offense staff went to LSU. No, they are staying in Oxford. We have it from people covering Ole Miss that they have gotten their pay doubled to stay at Ole Miss. So he's going to be kind of starting over in Oxford. It looks like, in Baton Rouge in terms of a staff, because he's not getting the defensive guys with him, and he's clearly not getting the offensive guys with him. Those guys are wanting to stay put in Oxford. So he'll find ways to score points. He's shown the ability to hire coaches. I'm not concerned about that. The high school recruiting is going to be the thing to watch. He has not put forth a lot of effort into that throughout his career to this point. Now, if you look the last couple years at Ole Miss, they have not signed a lot of high school players because they have been so. I cannot read that. So if you want to tell me what that says, I can't really make it out.
Oh, this is the Lane Kiffin message.
Official statement.
Yep, his official statement. After a lot of prayer and time spent with family, I made the difficult decision. Yeah, right. The difficult decision to accept the head coaching position at LSU. I was hoping to complete a historic 6-season run with this year's team by leading Ole Miss through the playoffs, capitalizing on the team's incredible success and their commitment to finish strong and investing everything into a playoff run with guardrails in place to protect the program in any areas of concern. My request to do so was denied by Keith Carter, despite the team also asking him to allow me to keep coaching them so they could better maintain their high-level performance. Unfortunately, that means Friday's Egg Bowl was my last game coaching the Rebels. While I am looking forward to a new start with a unique opportunity at LSU, I will forever cherish the incredible 6 years I spent at Ole Miss and will be rooting hard for the team to complete their mission and bring a championship to Oxford. Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, that's a lot of BS. I mean,
I'm surprised he didn't say love Lane Kiffin. Like, that'd be so damn like.
Yeah, no, I already showed it. That's good. I love that.
No, you got to keep coming back to that because that's what he is.
Yeah, Ben Garrett is vindicated and has been forever. No, like he knows. Actually, I don't know if Lane knows. Lane's the type of guy that I could see just not get it as to why it can't happen. He can't coach the team in the playoff. You can't let that happen. And just he's going to try to paint this as Ole Miss. They screwed me on the way out the door. Then I'm sure that's going to be what he sells to recruits the rest of the way. The fact that no one on his roster is buying that BS whatsoever. Like, I guess we'll see if a couple of guys hit the portal, like outside of Austin Simmons, who is like completely this is not a shot at Austin Simmons, but like he's going to be transferring, looking for an opportunity elsewhere. Like I'm assuming, I don't know. No one who's a contributor on this Ole Miss team is going to walk away from Ole Miss to go join Lane Kiffin in Oxford at this point. I would be stunned if that happened. So he can't use that excuse. I'm sure that's what he'll sell to recruits going forward. Like, I wanted to do what was right for my team and finish out the season. I just couldn't pass on the opportunity, and it
was a difficult decision.
Yeah, like okay.
Look, very difficult.
So going back to what I was saying, like the high school recruiting thing, what I will say is the last couple of years at Ole Miss, while he did not put a bunch of effort into high school recruiting in terms of the bulk of the roster because he's been so portal-centric, and I think that's the approach Ole Miss wanted to take, which I also think is a smart approach to take at Ole Miss, just considering the fact that you're probably not going to consistently win the battles for the high school players. So getting the guys who are more developed and know the college ranks makes sense. He did sign a lot of good high school players. Like, a lot of their defensive line this year, I know like Prince Will is the guy who led them in sacks, and that's a transfer. Most of their defensive line is homegrown players. It's guys that have been on the roster that they signed and recruited, which I will say that is kind of Pete Golding more than that's Lane Kiffin. Those guys went to go play for to Pete as opposed to playing for Lane. But there's some high school talent. Like, they have gone out and like signed, I think I'm going to reference Bud Elliott again. He does the blue chip ratio, which is the idea that, at least 50% of your roster has to be made up of blue chip players out of the high school ranks in order to be able to compete for a national championship or win a title. And I think he said Ole Miss is like a year away from meeting the blue chip ratio. So he has recruited well. And Alexander saying Glenn Schumann to Ole Miss. Pete Golden is the full-time head coach. Mm-hmm. That's unless this is something that just really happened. Pete Golden's already gotten the job. So there's not going to be another hire made at Ole Miss.
At least that decision wasn't difficult.
Yeah. Which there's a Glenn Schumann, Lane Kiffin rumor that was going on the board last night. I'm not going to say it here.
I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I can't quit laughing at Lane Kiffin talking about how difficult it was. It's like, Lane Kiffin and the word difficult. I'm not going to quit laughing at it for the rest of the day.
Anyway, he has signed good talent at the high school ranks at Ole Miss. It's just not focusing on it. So maybe he can put forth that at LSU. And look, like I said, LSU is the type of place where a lot of the people talk about, this program recruits itself, and that's usually BS at most places. LSU, because even at the big time schools, you still have to win the battles. LSU is one of the few schools that I will kind of buy does recruit itself. But LSU fans will also tell you Brian Kelly did not recruit the way he needed to there. So it's like you can't not put forth the effort in it. He's going to have to be fantastic in that department to make it happen. But look, the knowing how to work the portal, and to give him credit on this, like, we see Florida State be super portal heavy. In like 1 year it worked for him. Every other year it's been a disaster because you get a lot of those guys who come in and they don't care. They're there to get the paycheck, and that's it. And it hasn't worked out. Kiffin has not had a single team where they've gone portal heavy and it blow up in their face. So, like, he has clearly been able to handle that well, like getting guys in and making them function. And he's done it over multiple seasons. So I mean, look, we'll see how that – look, I fully believe he could win a national championship at LSU, but there are real concerns with him. And, yeah, I mean, what happens when they go 8-4 next year, land on the hot seat already? Oh, he'll be on the hot seat quickly for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I think look, Lane, I understand why he's fully coveted. I'm not going to sit here and pretend he's not an awesome coach, because I will talk about it for Ole Miss here in a sec. Like, you do wonder if it will last at the level they currently have it, because at the end of the day, anytime you have a coach who wins like Lane did at a program, at a place that doesn't traditionally do that, typically there tends to be some regression to the mean. So he's a really good coach. But there's also enough red flags with Kiffin where it could blow up in his face. Like, I don't think there's going to be a middle ground. Either he goes to LSU and is awesome, or it's going to be just a complete disaster. Which that just feels very Lane Kiffin. So, I mean, I guess that's a bow on Kiffin to LSU. We'll obviously on the show, we'll have whatever news happens. We've spent almost an hour talking about Lane Kiffin, and we still have all these other SEC jobs to hit. But look, this is going to be a big live stream. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. From an Ole Miss perspective, I kind of already talked about it. They're basically keeping – it's the Ole Miss staff minus Lane Kiffin. Moving forward, Pete Golding is the full-time head coach. I will say, and I've already hit it, Kiffin's timing screwed them on this. Like, Jon Sumrall was a guy they kind of like – when it looked like it was going to be Sumrall to Auburn, the reason that didn't happen is because – well, hold on. We're still talking Ole Miss before we get the headline up. We're going to finish on Ole Miss here. When it was looking like it was going to be Sumrall to Auburn – the reason that didn't get done is because Sumrall knew if Ole Miss opened, he preferred Ole Miss to Auburn. He coached at Ole Miss previously, and I think liked the situation there and the way everything was set up, and he was going to take that job. Kiffin's timing didn't let it happen. So, like, he was able to pass on Auburn. He couldn't pass on Florida only to have it blow up in his face again and then be left without an SEC opportunity to go take. So he has to go to Florida. Alex Golesh was another coach that Ole Miss was looking, okay, if we can't get Sumrall, we'll go get Alex Golesh. Again, another guy with SEC experience. Tucker knows him very well from his time at Tennessee. He's done a good job down at South Florida. They've done a good job of transfers down there. Okay, offensive-minded guy, runs a lot of the same type stuff that we're running now currently. It makes sense. Well, he basically already passed on Arkansas when that was a job that was offered to him. He can't pass – these guys were both able to pass on one opportunity. Sumrall passing on Auburn, Golesh passing on Arkansas. You can't pass on number two. So when Auburn comes calling and said, we're going to make it happen, I can't wait on Lane Kiffin to see what's going to happen. I got to take the Auburn job and just run with it. So Ole Miss forced to promote Golding. And I think it can work out. Golding has done a good job there. He's keeping the offensive staff in place, which helps a ton. I think the roster will largely stay in place, which helps a ton. I do think the continuity play makes a ton of sense here. Can he be a head coach? Because there's a lot of guys who have gotten promoted and it just doesn't work out. So it's a question. Like that's going to be a big question for them moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing I'll say too about that, it reminds me a little bit of something that happened to the Tennessee baseball program within the last month with Tony Vitello leaving for the Giants. Now, here's the thing. It was not nearly as rocky of an exit as what we're seeing at Ole Miss. Now, and Vitello has taken some of the staff with him, but overall you've kept some of the glue that has held the thing together. Ole Miss seems to be doing more than what Tennessee's baseball program is doing here. It's just a matter of whether or not this will last down the road, I think. And I think this is something that can go out and motivate these guys too, right? Because you are trying to prove to the country, to the university, to the conference that this staff is more than just one guy. And I think that should be something that motivates them both in this playoff run and just in the years moving ahead. So I think for the time being, and just given the timing of it all and all these deals being made in other places, this was the right thing to do for now. Will it pay dividends down the road? We'll just have to wait and see. But again, I would think this puts the chip on your shoulder to try and go out and prove everybody wrong, to all the haters who think Pete Golding can't make it at Ole Miss.
Well, we can use another SEC baseball analogy, though, that went the other way, which we don't know how the Tennessee way is going to work out yet. We haven't seen it because it just happened. Texas A&M, Schlossnagle leaving them after playing for a national championship and goes to Texas. Texas A&M promotes the top assistant. I'm blanking on his name right now. They kept a lot of that roster. They kept that roster in place. A lot of really talented players. They didn't go follow Schlossnagle. They stayed in Aggie land, and that team was a disaster. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be Pete Golding. It's just that's kind of one of the perfect examples. Sometimes you do keep it all in place and it doesn't work out. So it is a question for them, and that is where, Alexander saying there's a 100% chance Ole Miss loses offensive players to LSU in the portal. I'm not saying they're not going to. Okay, they might lose somebody. Like, I'm not saying they're not going to. No one will go. But I think a lot of those guys are probably going to. Like, I do think this is one of those things with Kiffin where you spurn them in the way you did. A lot of those guys are going to want to stick around. And it's just out of pure bitterness. I think a lot of those guys will stay, but it's no guarantee it'll work out. To be fair, it's no guarantee Sumrall would have worked or Golesh would have worked. We don't know with any of these hires, but you also understand like having a guy who's shown he could be the head coach why you'd want him in. I'll say this for Ole Miss, and I kind of mentioned it earlier. Like the infrastructure is not going to change. Like the Grove Collective has been one of the better operations from an NIL standpoint in the whole country. Like they were one of the first to embrace NIL and maximize NIL within the SEC. So the money is there, and they've got the alignment between the boosters, the collective, and the athletic department, where essentially if the money's got to be found to get a player, they just make it happen. And it's not a whole thing of, well, can we do this? How are we going to do this? Is it smart to do? They just go out and do it. And they've done it really well. That's not going to go away. So that gives you confidence in Golding to be having a baseline floor. The structure is in place. If you just keep that part of it going, you'll be successful. It's just or you'll at least get players, right? Now, whether or not you maximize those players on game day is another question. Florida and Auburn have had players the last couple of years. It hasn't mattered because they've had coaches who are just not good. So what does that look like for Golding at Ole Miss? We'll see. I do wonder, if some of these other jobs, though, we'll talk about these other jobs here in a sec. Let's say Kiffin does get it rolling in Baton Rouge, and Sumrall gets it going at Florida, and Golesh hits it at Auburn. Those are programs that Ole Miss was able to move ahead of because of incompetence at head coach, but also not being up on NIL. Ole Miss was able to jump them because of that. If those coaches, though, are successful there, and if NIL gets in place at those programs, does Ole Miss still stay ahead? I don't know. I'm not saying they won't. It's just I do wonder if moving forward, if it's going to be a little bit more difficult to keep the same level. Like I think averaging 10 wins a year is probably going to be tough to do moving forward. But that might have been tough to do moving forward if Lane was still there. I'm not saying they won't be able to accomplish that. We have no idea, but there's a lot changing in the SEC at the same time, and that's gonna really change things up quite a bit. But a crazy situation with Kiffin. Again, we spent over an hour just on that. We'll see how it works out at LSU. We're not going to spend as long on these others, but we definitely have to give them the time. So we'll start with the Florida news. Jon Sumrall is next head coach of Florida. I believe the contract's like $7.5 million a year was the deal that was reported there. So big pay for him. Again, a name that has been talked about for quite some time as an up-and-comer in the SEC. Former SEC assistant both at Ole Miss and at Kentucky. Played football at Kentucky. Head coach at Troy, was very successful there, turning them around after 3 straight losing seasons to win a conference title in his first year. Takes over at Tulane and for Willie Fritz. And I know, look, the double-digit win seasons haven't happened just quite yet. Although I think, they go 10-2 this year. I think that's right. So, I mean, they won a bunch of games this year. So he got the double-digit win season this year, playing for a conference title, potentially could be in the playoff. He's continued that success there at Tulane. Everybody has said this is the next guy in the SEC. Like, that's sort of been the perspective on him, that he is, as SEC a coach you can find, good recruiter, just a good ball coach, and a guy who gets his teams to win football games. Florida fans are very concerned that this is a defensive version of Billy Napier. I understand those concerns. I also think Sumrall is a really good coach, and that all these schools wanted him for a reason, which a lot of schools wanted Billy Napier too. I think this is a good move, and I know Florida fans are freaking out over another G5 head coach from the state of Louisiana, and they're ready to move on from Scott Strickland. They think he completely blew this with missing on Lane. I think it's a good move, though. What are y'all's thoughts?
It's a pretty good move.
Yeah. I think overall with this hire, I understand the Florida fans' frustrations because, like you said, Andrew, another Group of Five coach from the state of Louisiana. Now, he has proven his worth at two of these Group of Five schools in Troy and Tulane. Tulane's kind of been that launch pad for a while. And similar to Ole Miss, I do think it kind of sucks that you could be looking at a team in Tulane that is playing without its head coach in the CFP and just with Sumrall taking this job. But at the same time, I don't think we should be allowing the G5 into the college football playoff. Just with the way this thing is structured, like they're just not going to be able to compete with everybody else at the top here in the future. That's just the sad reality for those schools. But no, Sumrall, he's done a good job there. And the other thing that I think is bothering Florida fans about this is you just stop talking to Lane Kiffin. That's part of the problem. I don't know if it was Kiffin not being interested in them or it was Scott Strickland not having interest in Lane Kiffin. I don't know what it was there. But
I think Kiffin was not very interested.
Yeah.
That's not reporting. That's just all, and I'm not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but all of the reporting nationally and from LSU and from Ole Miss was that Florida was just really not in the mix there. The only people saying Florida was in the mix were a handful of Florida insiders. Yeah. I think Florida just was never fully in it. I think, obviously, look, they went and visited Gainesville. His family did. They considered. But I think Florida was just not really a player for Lane.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think that's one reason why the fans are pretty upset. But no, overall, I think it's a solid hire, just what he's been able to do in the Group of Five. And the fact that he's done it at two schools, too, going from Troy to Tulane, which is one of the highest rungs in Group of Five football right now. You've been winning at both levels that you've been at in the past, and now you can go to Florida and see what happens. Now, I guess the big question is what you do in the transfer portal. How can you retain some of these guys? Because honestly, despite everything that happened with Billy Napier, this group is very bought into Florida. I think the question now is how can you make it gel if those guys are going to stay?
Jackson, any thoughts?
Yeah, because it's like Sumrall at Florida. I could see this working out a lot better than Napier at Florida did. Now, are we going to be seeing 10-win seasons in Gainesville again? Are we going to see Florida dominate recruiting? That's going to be a lot of questions there. Can we see the Gators get the job done with Sumrall? Well, they've got a better chance than they ever did with Napier. That I can tell you for sure.
I like the move. Look, I think Sumrall is a really good coach. He's someone that Mississippi State was considering a couple years back coming out of Troy. When they ultimately hired Jeff Levy, Sumrall was one of the finalists for the job. And it didn't happen because I think part of it was like he had a whole thing of like he wanted a clause in his contract that if Kentucky comes open, I can just leave and go take the Kentucky job. And Mississippi State was not going to allow that. I don't think that's going to be a thing anymore. I think clearly he's not leaving Florida to go back to the alma mater. He will.
Why would anybody want to leave Florida for Kentucky? Unless it's basketball.
It was a big thing for him a couple of years ago. That's passed him by. At this point, he's too big for Kentucky at this point. So that was part of the holdup. Also, I think State was just really obsessed with the idea that we had to get an offensive-minded coach in, and he's a defensive guy. But I think he's a really good coach. I think he recruits well. I think he gets his team really fired up and just has a team that's pretty – I understand Tulane took a couple losses this year that they took one loss, the UTSA loss, that had people questioning them. But, like, he just wins a lot of football games and I think fits the mentality. I think he's been a good coach on game days. Like, we'll see the recruiting side of it, how that plans out. But I think guys want to play for him. But with Napier, like it wasn't players, it was the game day coaching. And I think with Sumrall, like you were getting a ball coach in there with all the trust that he's going to be able to get players. So I think it is a really good move for them. I understand the concerns about the G6 coach and why they wanted a sitting power conference coach, but I think he will do a really nice job. Now, I think part of why the Auburn thing was a holdup was wanting to have his own staff in place. And I know that's one of the things people question is like, well, can you build an SEC caliber staff? His coaching staff has been successful at 2 straight stops in the Southeast. And I think that some of those guys do. I know he's at least got the SEC experience. So it's not like he doesn't know what an SEC staff is supposed to look like. Okay. I think he's a guy that can come in and be successful. I think he's got a lot of good players on that Tulane roster that'll come and join. And I know that's going to be another thing that terrifies Florida fans because Napier brought a lot of guys from ULL with him. But I don't know. I think it's a good move. And I think if you're Florida, you might have lucked out with it not being Lane. And again, I think Lane could be awesome in Baton Rouge. I think it's going to work out really well for them with Sumrall.
Yeah.
All right. Off that, because the school that was going to look considering hiring Jon Sumrall had to make a pivot, and it worked out for him. Auburn goes with Alex Golesh from South Florida, former Tennessee offensive coordinator, was a key part of that team. I know very well liked within the locker room and had a big role in that offense being as successful as it was, even though, I know it's Josh Heupel's show, but Golesh clearly was a big part of it because you see how he's done at South Florida and running that offense down there in Tampa has done a really, really nice job. Big with quarterback development. When you look at the guys that he's been able to coach, going back to, he was assistant at Iowa State, running a very different style of offense, but, Brock Purdy working with him, working with Hendon Hooker, and now Byron Brown at South Florida. Done a good job in the recruiting sphere and getting players to play at USF. And a guy who, of course, knows the SEC. I think, look, you're getting somebody in who the offensive side, Auburn needed to fix the offense, right? That was the issue. The defense is working. We've got a ton of talent on defense. We got talent on offense, too. Can we have somebody step in and maximize that side of the ball? Can we have somebody give us good quarterback play, which we have not had in so long? And it feels like this is a guy who's going to be able to do it. I think it's another really good move. And look, man, if he's able to get Byron Brown with him, I know there's like questions over whether or not he's got another year of eligibility or not, but you give him Byron Brown, throw into Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons, buddy, they're going to score points and a lot of points.
So I'm looking at the contract and it's $7.4 million a year. And if Auburn winds up getting a 9-win season and onward, Alex Golesh gets an extra $1.5 million. That's one of the incentives in his contract. But if Golesh winds up getting a 12-win season for Auburn, his annual salary could exceed $12 million a season. So I'm looking at this from Auburn Undercover at 247 Sports, and I got to tell you, these are some humongous incentives right there.
Yeah.
Tucker, I mean, you know him well. What are your thoughts on Golesh?
So of the 5 SEC fan bases that we have discussed on this show today, and I guess we still got one more to go, other than LSU, Auburn seems to be the most pleased with what is going on. Now, are they, jumping up and down in celebration of this hire? I don't really know about that because you brought in some offensive guys in Brian Harsin and Hugh Freeze, and you saw it not go well with them, obviously. But no, I think what Alex Golesh has done has been remarkable. I mean, we talk about the quarterback development. You mentioned Brock Purdy, which I had almost forgotten that he was up there at that point at Iowa State. But Hendon Hooker, of course, Byron Brown was doing some great things for them at USF these past few seasons. And honestly, like you look in-house right now at Auburn, there's a lot of good things that are in place there. It just wasn't the head coach that was the good thing in place at Auburn. Like they've recruited well. You got a defensive coach and DJ Durkin who you are thinking about potentially keeping around, because here's the thing, what that I will say about Alex Golesh is that he reminds me a lot of a coach that is in Knoxville right now because, he worked under him for a little while. But the teams are very similar if you really look at the numbers. Like, they're going to put up a lot of points. You're not always certain about the defense, and you're going to commit a lot of penalties. And I know there's another coach in the SEC who has a rather undisciplined football team. You know a thing or two about it, Andrew, who is off that same tree. Like, you have to really nail the defensive coordinator hire, and I think you can do that by keeping DJ Durkin in-house. But I mean, overall, if you're able to keep the defensive talent you have, plus what you have on the offensive end, maybe bring one or two guys up from USF up to Auburn, then I think you could be looking at something really good in Alex Golesh at Auburn.
The defensive side is going to be the key part. And look, I think he had a good move for South Florida this year. Hiring a guy that is not super popular because the last few stops have not worked out for him, but he hired Todd Orlando as his DC, and it's actually worked out well because they give up a lot of yards, and they've had a couple games where the teams have gotten them, but they've been very aggressive in what they force a lot of turnovers, force negative plays. That's a style that complements when you got an offense that's going to put points on the board. Play a style that's going to get the ball back to your offense quickly, and it just keep maximizing the reps for that offense. It's worked out well. We'll see if he does keep Durkin. I know that's not necessarily finalized yet, but if you do, you've got a guy who's been successful. And also, it wasn't the case at Auburn because that offense never ended up working. But when Durkin was at Ole Miss, he was opposite of a Lane Kiffin offense that was snapping the ball constantly. I mean, it's basically this system. It's just a little bit of a different version of it. He's been opposite of this offense before. So he has familiarity of how to run an offense opposite of a really explosive system. I don't think Durkin should have gotten the full-time job. I thought that would have been a very stupid move. But I do think if you keep him on staff and you keep that side of the ball in place, and offensively, again, there's talent on offense. And even if Byron Brown can't come with him, hey, Deuce Knight's right there. Look at Deuce Knight and his ability to go play. I've seen Deuce Knight in person. I'm from the Mississippi Coast. He's from the Mississippi Coast. I watched him terrorize my high school in person back last year. Kid can play. Him playing in this offense would be a whole lot of fun to watch. Throwing to those receivers, I think he'll be able to step in and have a lot of success right away. I think he'll be able to retain some of the offensive talent because he's the type of guy that those guys will say, okay, we'll play in this system. If you figure out the defense, I think it could work out really, really well. I think there's a high ceiling with the move. I know there was some concern. South Florida has one of the better NIL budgets in the AAC, or I guess it's just the American now. And they lost to a lot of the teams that had better – they tended to beat up on a lot of the lesser teams within the league and didn't have a lot of success against the better teams within the league. That's a fair concern. And I know for a place like Auburn, where beating the upper teams in the conference certainly matters, that could be something a little bit concerning. But I don't know. I think Auburn has the money. They spent in NIL this last year in the portal. They've spent in the high school ranks as well. Their whole thing is they didn't give money to Brian Harsin because they don't trust Brian Harsin. And I think Hugh Freeze, the funds kind of dried up on him really quick once they saw that, hey, man, we don't trust you with this and to make it work. You put the money behind him, though, to go out and get players, and you let him, again, run that offense and then put a good defense opposite of him, I think he could be really successful. I like the move for Auburn. I think he's someone that'll fit well there. And I think he'll fit well, and he's not a guy where, not to take a shot at Auburn here, but Auburn kind of has a reputation of, at times, coach, well, I guess this is more of a Hugh Freeze thing, coaches who would just do any not the best guys running the program, I guess would be the best way to talk about it, which that's not fair because that wasn't Gus. That really wasn't Brian Harsin. But I think it's a breath of fresh air. You get this up-and-coming coach who knows the league, has had success. I think it's something that could work out really, really well for them. That turns in, though, to the final straw with Arkansas. Now, back in the midweek, it was reported that Arkansas was hiring Alex Golesh and that he was going to be the next head coach of the Hogs. He was extended an offer. He did not sign that offer because he recognized that there were a lot of dominoes that still needed to fall in the SEC, and he's a hot commodity within the SEC. So instead, Auburn gets Alex Golesh, and Arkansas settles on Memphis's Ryan Silverfield. I don't think Silverfield's a bad coach, but this to me is even with Lane looking awful in all this, we do know Lane is a successful coach and could work out really well. And I guess Silverfield could work out well too. I guess I could get old takes exposed on all this. This to me, though, is the least inspiring hire of all of this.
Well, looking at the record for Silverfield, he's 12-20 against teams above 500. Never led Memphis to the AAC title game. This season, they were 4-4 with losses to UAB, East Carolina, Navy, and Tulane. Now, I mean, you're going to lose Navy and Tulane, but UAB and East Carolina, that's just nuts. And, oh my God, like 3-12 against teams above 500 on the road. That's not good, but that's terrible. Like you said, Andrew, it's the least inspiring hire of this carousel. And, you know, I saw this from Hitman Hoops on X just now. And this, looking at these stats, that's not good for Arkansas. Now, Arkansas can't be expecting to have years like they were under Frank Broyles in the 60s. You kind of have to lower your standards a little bit in Fayetteville. You've been in the SEC for 30 plus years. I mean, you're going to have to lower your standards just a little bit. Just expect to have a 7-win season at the very least. Few upsets here and there, but that's it. I mean, if you think you're going to the SEC title, well, you're not going to with this hire, that's for sure. I don't see a playoff run anytime soon for the Razorbacks. Not in the next 4 years, anyway.
I do want to, like, you talk about the record against better teams. I know that was something that just got brought up with Golesh. As to, like, well, that's a knock on Golesh as well. And Golesh does have one of the better funded rosters in the American. But it's not to the same level as Memphis. I don't know where it is in relation to Tulane. I don't know for sure. But I also look at Golesh, keep in mind, and we forgot to mention this when talking about the hire. South Florida was coming off like a 1-11 season when he got hired. Like, they were awful. I know that's a place that has won before. Like, coaches have gone down there and had a lot of success. Taggart, Charlie Strong won a lot of games there. Which I guess the track record on coaches from South Florida is not great. So we'll see how that works out for Auburn. But he took over an awful situation and in a couple of years had it rolling. And also, year 2, Byron Brown got injured. So he was having to deal with quarterback injury there. And this season, I mean, look, he gets blown out by Miami. It's Miami. And then the losses to Memphis and Navy, those are 2 really good teams. The defense just couldn't get enough stops. The offense was productive. His offense was productive in every single game this year. So, like, the defense, again, if you get that part figured out, I think he's going to be fine. And he had a couple years of building it up. With Silverfield, you have the best well-funded roster in the conference. You have that FedEx money behind you. You also have a program that has been rolling for several years now, going back to Justin Fuente, then into Mike Norvell. That program has had a ton of success. And his first few years, I didn't have it pulled up. But if you look at Ryan Silverfield and his time at Memphis, so he takes over in 2019, which was a 12-win team that played in the Cotton Bowl against Penn State. 2020 go 8-3. Okay, it's COVID year. 6-6, 7-6, and then in 2023 go 10-3. Well, what happened in the American Conference in 2023 that was different than the previous years before that? Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF left the league. Mm-hmm. So those teams that are stronger in the conference were in there, and he wasn't able to have success against them. He had bad seasons. They leave the league, and he finally jumps up and wins 10 games. They win 11 last year, and then this year go 8-4. Really disappointing considering where they were at one point, and then fading down the stretch. I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I know he's had he was able to ultimately get things going there, and I know he's well respected in a lot of circles. But it kind of feels like he took over a situation that was built to win and didn't have any success until the other teams in the conference that could win left. And again, he's doing this with the best NIL budget in that conference. You're not getting that at Arkansas. Like, Arkansas probably had the least expensive roster in the SEC this year. Maybe Kentucky had less. I know Mississippi State at least hit the 15 million number. And I think Arkansas was below that threshold. I could be wrong, but I think I've heard some people say they were behold that threshold, which 15 mil is kind of considered like the baseline of like, you have to put up at least 15 million to have a semi-competent roster these days. And I don't know if Arkansas hit that. Are they going to get that figured out moving forward? Because and even if they do, they're not going to have the same money as some of these other teams in the league. Maybe he comes in and there's just some baseline stability. I'm not saying he can't go there and get them to bowl games But I don't think this is a guy who steps in and has Arkansas winning at the level that they want to. And Jackson, you're right. It's not necessarily realistic at Arkansas to expect that these days. But at the same time, like, I don't know if the ceiling is even there where if it clicks, it works out to have that type of success.
Yeah, it's not going to go well for them, I don't think. You hit the nail on the head with settling because that is very much what it felt like with this hire at Arkansas. That coaching tree in Memphis is poisonous, I swear. Justin Fuente,
Mike Norvell.
Mike Norvell just got blocked out of bowl eligibility, and they said, you know what, we're going to keep you for another year. Right before he got blocked out of bowl eligibility, and he's 5-7 because aside from the 2 really great seasons they had there, I don't think they've gone to any bowl games outside of the Jordan Travis seasons. Like it's not gone well for them there. Silverfield inherited all this wealth, as you guys mentioned. He's just been living off of that stuff, and they've been okay. Memphis historically is not a good football program, at least up until 2014 or 15. And it, I don't want to say it feels like Chad Morris all over again, but in a way, it kind of does. Like he's inheriting a 2-10 program. You can't go much lower than what Arkansas did this year. Now, granted, Chad Morris was not scheduling Notre Dame and Memphis on the schedule. He was scheduling 4 games. 3 of them were group of 5, and then 1 was FCS, and he was going 2-2 in those games, which is not good. Arkansas will not have that luxury out there. The other problem with Arkansas now is just as this conference has expanded, their recruiting pitch has weakened because, you used to in 1992 up until 2011, 12, when Texas A&M joined the conference, you could say, hey, if you're a Texas kid, you want to play in the best league in the conference, just come to Arkansas. It's the closest to home because, like we said with LSU, you got all that talent in your backyard. They're not going to go looking to Texas for talent. They'll take what they can get from Texas.
They do, but you're right.
But yeah, seriously, if you have all this talent in your backyard in Louisiana, you want to keep it in state. I'm not saying they won't turn down better talent from Texas, but it's more attractive for Arkansas kids than going to a school that recruits its own backyard so much. But then when you add Texas A&M and Texas to the mix, and even
Oklahoma,
all 3 of those schools have just destroyed Arkansas's recruiting base to where, they are they're right there with Kentucky right now, just in terms of bad recruiting bases. I think Kentucky's probably worse, but you don't have much of a pool there at Arkansas. And that is something that I think Silverfield is going to have to know going in. And Walmart and the Tyson chicken nuggets, they're going to have to step up get all that money in from the Walton family and the Tyson family to that program. And I know a lot of that is going to the basketball program right now. I don't know if that's where they're focused. At some point, the president just has to get rid of Hunter Yurachek in this, right? Like they can't just keep settling. And the fans are trying to pull a Shiano Sunday. I don't know if it's going to be successful, but I think the fans are pretty seriously annoyed with Hunter Yurachek out there. The nation is getting to see what kind of a clown he is with this college football playoff rankings each week that are being unveiled just because of how goofy it looks. Man, I hate it for Arkansas fans because they do care about their program, but it's not an inspiring hire at all.
Well, Missouri impacted the recruiting base as well, because that was another thing. Like, you can go get kids out of St. Louis and be like, hey man, like, come play in the SEC. You don't have to go to the Big 12. And then Missouri joins, and all of a sudden, like, that impacted them as well. And you're right, the Texas thing. Yeah, like LSU would go into Texas, but also it was a lot of Houston for LSU. Arkansas can go to Dallas, like North Texas and that metroplex. And it's hard to do it now because you've got these other programs where that is the main recruiting base. Now, Silverfield recruiting the Memphis area. Arkansas gets a lot of players out of Memphis. There's ties there. I don't think he's going to be awful. I won't go the Chad Morris route. I think there will be some baseline competence. Like, I can see him having a competent football team. I think baseline competence is all you're getting, though. And I don't think you're going to be able to get much more than that. you're right. It's not a super inspiring hire. I think Kane Womack would have been a much better hire, personally, because – and it's not even – yeah, he's had success as a defensive coordinator at Alabama. That's great. The defense has been really good this year. He's done the head coaching job, though, at South Alabama, took over a team that doesn't have the resources at all within the Sun Belt, and won 10 games there. Like, him stepping in, like, he has shown as a head coach, what he has done to me has been more impressive than what you've seen from Silverfield at Memphis. And it has the SEC ties, obviously, as a coordinator within the league. Now, because we're doing all this, we've done all this, so guess which coach is going to be the most successful of the four we've talked about? I guess five we've talked about today.
Oh.
It's going to be Ryan Silverfield, because we've said all this. That's how this goes.
We've motivated him.
Well, it's not even the motivation. It's just if you're guaranteeing a coaching hire will work out, that's when it always doesn't work. But it's not a hire, though, that I think it inspires a lot of confidence. I think Arkansas did. The other thing is Arkansas was the first at the table within the SEC. Like, they've had this figured out for several weeks or months and didn't make it happen.
Yeah, first one to fire a coach, and I guess technically the first one to announce the hiring of a coach, right? Because Golesh and Sumrall were both a little bit later on. And you had a chance to get Golesh, but I don't know what exactly fell through, but it fell through.
Well, what fell through is Auburn's a better opportunity.
Yeah.
Golesh knew he had a chance at Ole Miss, and I think he also knew he had and then the Auburn opportunity came. And I don't know how long Auburn had been talking to him. I will say, knowing John Cohen well, and I will give him a little bit of credit here, because I thought I felt like he was going to promote Durkin, and I think all signs were pointing towards promoting Durkin after missing on Sumrall, and I was ready to get the takes off there, because I've got plenty of opinions on John Cohen as an AD, being a Mississippi State guy, and just I think the Hugh Freeze was very much, he was supposed to get Lane Kiffin, couldn't make it happen, and then the booster said, "Screw you, we're hiring who we want." And they went and got Hugh Freeze, and you see how that worked out for him. The boosters wanted DJ Durkin. And I think this was about to be the same thing of, oh, you couldn't get Sumrall? All right, screw you. You're going to have to hire DJ Durkin. I thought that was about to happen once again, and I was going to make a lot of fun of him. What Cohen has done, though, throughout his career at Mississippi State was a lot of the hires were kind of out of left field. Like, no one was talking, and the Mike Leach hire clearly worked. Nobody knew Mike Leach was going to happen. None of us saw that happening whatsoever. That was a big surprise. Some of his baseball hires, they were not names that we were talking about as potential candidates, very much quite literally out of left field, but for the baseball hires there. So he's someone who has a track record of going against the grain. Not that Golesh is not a name that was talked about, but he was not being linked to Auburn. Like, it was a lot of noise about other candidates, as it was Sumrall, obviously promoting Durkin, but Eli Drinkwitz had come up a lot. Kenny Dillingham had come up a lot as potential options there. And getting Golesh, I think he clearly moved a little bit in silence there and made it happen. And that impacted Arkansas, because Arkansas had a guy that they felt like was going to be the right move for the program, and I think would have been a really good hire. I think I would have liked the Golesh hire a lot more than I liked the Silverfield move. It just didn't work out for him, because you had other jobs that were better, more attractive jobs open up. You know, Ole Miss is a more attractive job than Arkansas, and obviously Auburn's a more attractive job. So, yeah, we'll see if it works out for him. Again, I don't think he's a terrible coach. He's just not a guy that inspires a lot of confidence of stepping in and being the big-time guy. Any final thoughts here on that? We've gone over an hour and a half talking the coaching carousel.
Yeah. Well, we had to go this long because of all the drama that's happened. One of those job changes in particular involving two SEC schools. But just curious to see what happens here with some of these. I mean, we kind of feel like we know one of them that's not going to work out particularly well. Or at least we think we know. We never truly know.
We don't know.
Yeah. But no, I think overall most of these schools, I think, have done the correct thing aside from Arkansas. Just because I you figure Golesh and Sumrall were going to work their way into these conversations. It was going to be hard to lure away, say, Brent Key from his alma mater at Georgia Tech to one of these places. I didn't envision that as a real possibility. I guess the last big domino in college football at this point, and I know UCLA and Michigan State are out there for the taking now. But Penn State, what does Penn State want to do? Do they poach somebody from the SEC? Is that a possibility?
If they have not struck out already, for the love of God, just go make Bob Chesney your coach. I know he's in deep talks with UCLA. I know UCLA is like that's what's probably going to happen, but I think that's going to happen because Penn State is turning their nose up at him.
Yeah.
Just go hire him. Dumb move by Penn State.
Brian Dable's also out there for the taking if you want him.
Apparently, there's actually something to that. The hype to Penn State stuff is just a joke, right? Like that's
I think it is, but that what is it? Kalshi that said that he's got the highest odds, like him and Sataki, which would be a mess. I don't know why you'd go after him anyway, because you just fired a guy from winning a bunch of games and not really turning the corner at the program. That's pretty much what Heupel is doing at Tennessee right now. As much as I want him to succeed, he's not turned any corners just yet.
I will say, Kalani Sataki, I think he's a freaking good football coach. If that's the guy for Penn State, it's just the guys who have coached in the state of Utah are always weird to me because all of them spend their entire careers in Utah. Like they either coach at like Utah, BYU, or Weber State and like rotate between them all. We did get a comment, so I would wonder about him outside of that state. But a comment here, was Ole Miss really a more attractive job than Arkansas pre-Kiffin? Some of these programs' attractiveness is flavor of the month.
Yeah. I think it goes back to what we said, Andrew, about the conference expansion thing, where it's the recruiting grounds that have been tapped into by these schools that have joined the conference later. And in another era of SEC football, I would say Arkansas is more attractive, but not in this era.
Well, so the recruiting thing is interesting. The state of Mississippi has a lot more talent in it than the state of Arkansas. So in terms of your background, now the state of Mississippi has 2 programs. Arkansas has 1. So I guess if you look at Arkansas's recruiting rankings, they're typically recruiting on a similar tier to State and Ole Miss, in the high school ranks at least. I don't know if it's so much the recruiting thing. It's the NIL thing. Like, Ole Miss has proven they will put up the money for NIL in football and do it at a high level. Arkansas has not proven that. It's not even so much a flavor of the month thing as it is Ole Miss has shown the infrastructure is in place. Now, I know Arkansas has shown in basketball. Also, Arkansas baseball matters. Like, and money, they are diverting money to that as well. But Ole Miss has shown for football, we will put up the money. Arkansas has not shown that yet. So that's a big part of it. Nationally, I guess we didn't hit on it, and we can just like Drinkwitz staying at Missouri. I mean, good for both sides. He's done a good job there. Obviously, his name was hot, and I do think he was interested in some of these other jobs. But I think he'll continue to have success there. I know everybody loves to hate Eli Drinkwitz because he is a very annoying coach, but he's a good coach. Vanderbilt keeping Clark Lee. Awesome. Good for them. I'm glad that's like sticking for Vanderbilt. I say that Mississippi State's got to play Vanderbilt annually moving forward. So maybe that's not a good thing.
Yeah. I think, honestly, Andrew, it depends on this Jared Curtis announcement on December 3rd. That will be the real sign of whether or not Vandy's for real, because being from Tennessee and understanding this rivalry, and they won yesterday, good for them, but good things don't generally last at Vanderbilt in football. We've seen either coaches fall apart like Derek Mason or get poached in the case of James Franklin. Now, again, a little bit different with Clark Lee, as it's his alma mater. But a big part of this was a good business decision that he made by bringing in that brain trust from New Mexico State. What happens when those guys leave, I think, is the big question.
For sure. Well, look, I think the SEC is now mostly settled. We have the answers on all these jobs. Nothing has happened yet, so I don't think we're going to see another move. I mean, Stoops and Beamer are the only ones. I guess real quick, do either of you think those jobs could
they've got their vote of confidence for 2026. But the ones to really watch out for is the waited out for Black Sunday in the NFL. Not Black Sunday, Black Monday to come out for the NFL. That's pretty much the only one. But other than that, that's really it. I don't see anybody in the SEC leaving for an NFL head coaching job.
Yeah, I don't think
Kiffin is leaving for that.
Yeah,
that would be the funniest thing.
Yeah. And for the record, I don't think that actually happens with Josh Heupel going to Penn State. That's just a weird rumor that's been floated around out there. Would be a dumb hire for Penn State considering what they're all upset by right now up there. But as for the other two guys, like Beamer, this is put up or shut up time for him. If he does not do well in 2026, they're going to look elsewhere. As for Mark Stoops, it's just Kentucky, man. They are not going to move quickly on head coaches unless you just really think things are falling apart there. Like, they went 5-7 this year, which is an improvement from what it was a season ago. They have a good young quarterback in Cutter Boley that they are confident in the future. And you won a couple conference games at the end of the year. I know Auburn and Florida weren't good football teams this year, but you like some of the things you have in place there at Kentucky. And again, basketball will always be the priority in Lexington. So I don't think they're going to move on him too quickly.
Yeah, with Stoops, he got asked in the press conference yesterday. He was asked if he would consider walking away, to which he said, laughing, "You think I'm going to walk away? You kidding me? 0% chance I walk away. I'm going to be here as far as I'm concerned." He added, 0 means 0% chance I walk. Translation, pay me, suckers, if you want me to go with my $40 million buyout or whatever the number is. If you want me to get out of here, you got to get me paid. As for Beamer, which we do have a comment here, we'll start a GoFundMe if you get rid of Beamer. I think he's going to get one more year. I think it's going to get a chance to fix the OC hire, but retaining Lenoris is going to be a big part of that. Can you keep Lenoris on board, go out and make a good OC hire, and then make something happen? I also think those two jobs, do you want to get into the coach market at this point? You see what Arkansas just had to hire.
Kentucky definitely doesn't.
I think South Carolina, I don't think you can move. I think, you could, but I don't think you're getting a big time hire at this point. So yeah, I think it's those jobs. We go into next year very much on the hot seat for both, and we see what happens. It seems like every move is done unless Kalen DeBoer goes to Penn State, in which case, I think that rumor is just a rumor. I don't think there's much to it. I'm sure Penn State reached out. I'm confident they probably reached out, but in terms of, I don't think he's actually considering a move. So at this point, it just becomes what happens with assistant coaches, if any big time hires get made at any of these programs, and obviously the portal. We have the portal coming up, but look, we have the playoff. We do have to talk about the playoff, not today, but that will be the focus of the show moving forward. So obviously we'll in a SEC championship game, Alabama, Georgia. That's going to be the next big thing that gets talked about for sure. So
we'll be having some preview videos for that. That's for sure.
We'll have plenty of great stuff here on the channel coming forward, but I think we've mostly settled the coaching carousel of it all. Jackson, you were the best at doing sign-offs and being the promoter. So how about you hit that for us?
Oh, man. Tell your friends, your family, and the cashiers at Pubs about the magic that all of us are creating, all right here on SEC at the Voice College Football, including tomorrow night, where I will be joined by Samuel Recker from College Football with Sam, 7:30 p.m. Central Time, as we'll be going over quite a lot on his takes on what's been going on throughout the SEC. Plus, check out Wednesday nights where Andrew, Tucker, and Josh Mahler go over their takes on the SEC. All right there. Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. Central Time on SEC at the Voice College Football. Tune in. You're not going to want to miss the magic that we're all making all right here on SEC at the Voice College Football.
Yeah, subscribe to the channel. Turn the notification bell on so you do know when we do go live. Obviously, also, if you're a fan of any of these teams, I don't think we have every SEC team covered, but you can definitely. We got a Mississippi State channel, we got an Alabama channel, we got a Tennessee channel, Oklahoma, all these different teams. Go find and subscribe to those channels.
By the way, I should say this too, for anyone wanting to hear about the nonsense that went down in Neyland Stadium yesterday. Jordan Binkley, my co-host, and I will be going live in about 2 hours to discuss the fallout from this season, because Josh Heupel is not on the hot seat yet, but he is one or two bad decisions away from being there. Let's just put it that way.
If you want to go and laugh at Tucker as they drown the sorrows from losing to Vanderbilt, that was rough, man. That was rough.
Yeah,
Diego Pavia, but
hard to watch in person, man.
Go watch Tennessee on the Voice of College Football. Hey, here we go. We already got the link posted from Jackson there, Mr. Promoter himself. And hey, you can
anybody that wants to become a mod, let me know, and I will put your handle in the settings, and you can put in the links of our social accounts, the links in the description on the channel, all of it, all right here on SEC at the Voice College Football.
Yep, we got our social handles there. You can follow each and every one of us if you'd like to. If you haven't left a like on this video, please do. We would greatly appreciate that. And again, if you're not a subscriber, subscribe and turn that notification bell on. Appreciate all of you for tuning in for this hour, 45-minute show, just about crazy day in college football. But it's always fun being able to sit down and talk about it. We will see you all next time.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select a betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.